Hello everyone, and today we're going to be talking about Crusadia within the context of the Theme Chronicle event. Now, Crusadia was at the beginning of the event one of the most popular decks because it's quite simply the fastest way of grinding your way through the event to get gems because your games are over so goddamn quickly. So this deck is incredible for people who just want to blast through, who don't want to think twice about it and want to just get their wins, get their losses and just move on to the next game. It is super cheap, super affordable. It has a lot of very interesting gimmicks. You know, I personally like the build using the waterfront, but you don't have to play it. It's very, very interesting in how you can combo it, things like Kaijus. So yeah, if you've been playing the event, you've probably already seen this deck. By the time you're seeing this video, you'll actually be in the post-Crusadia meta within the event, if you will, where people are now sort of making plays and sort of building the decks in a fashion to counter Crusadia because it was so popular at the very beginning. But this is still an excellent starting point for anyone who is relatively new to the game and doesn't have a fantastic deck to bring in, or maybe just doesn't have that many different decks and wants something super affordable as well as very easy to use. Now, we've got a few games lined up. We've got a game displaying the regular sort of combo, the OTK. I'm only going to show that once because it's really straightforward and I don't want all of the replays to be the same thing. So we're going to show off the OTK, we're going to show off some Kaiju shenanigans, and we're going to show off a couple of bad matchups where we lose so that you can get an idea as to what to look out for as well as what you can play if you want to counter Crusadia. So we're going to be covering all of that as well as a detailed deck profile at the end of the video. So if that's something you want to be seeing, stick around to the end, but do watch the gameplay because there is a lot to be learned from it. And yeah, if you like this style of content and you want to see anything more like this, your first time around here, why not subscribe? And if it's not your first time around and you haven't subscribed yet, well, why not just subscribe? If you're already coming back, you might as well. And yeah, with that being said, let's get into game number one. Alrighty, so with this deck, you almost always want to be going second. Our opponent's playing Megalith, right, which is a very, very interesting deck here. They're playing a little BLS engine in order to get more ritual materials, which I thought was also really cool. But basically what you want to be doing with this deck is going second. We did cut Terraforming from the deck eventually because we wanted to play Pot of Desires. I think Desires is way better than Terraforming. So what we're going to be displaying in this game is the OTK chain. It is literally just a claim. It is as easy as that. It is super straightforward. You're going to see it here. We're going to activate our field spell. It's actually handy here that we have the Terraforming because the field spell can, once you have 3 counters on it, it can search your deck for a Kaiju, and that's not once per turn. So if we activate the second one, we can search for a second Kaiju. So that's our plan. We're going to go Sangan into Almirage to trigger it, and then we go search our deck for Draco. Draco's a very good one. That's why we play Sangan, because we want to get access to Draco to start recycling our monsters back from graveyard. It can also get Leonis as well. Leonis is really important if you're against a defensive player. Our opponent's going to go Megalith Unformed here. What that's basically going to do is let them ritual summon out the Megalith Full from their deck. That's fine. Full then is going to give them the option to ritual summon Megalith before from their deck, I believe. Maybe from their hand or deck. Basically lets them summon out before. Before it would normally target cards in your field up to the number of different ritual monsters in their graveyard and destroy them. But our Arborea is protected by Almirage, and Waterfront protects itself by detaching a counter. So before does nothing to us. So that's great. We're going to grab the Gamma Seal from the deck, and then we're going to activate our second Waterfront so we can start building up counters. We're going to link into Magius. So basically, it's a 3-step ladder climb, right? It's step 1, step 2, step 3. Magius is step 1, right? So Magius step 1, summon something underneath it, triggers its effect to search. You go into step 2, which is Regulex. Regulex, you summon something underneath it. Well, first we're going to use our field spell to search for a Kaiju. We're going to start doing some Kaiju action here. The search effect of your Crusadia monsters activates when an effect monster is special summoned to a zone they point to. So because Regulex points up, that also triggers the search, but normally you're just going to summon one of your Crusadias to a zone underneath it, and it makes no functional difference. We're going to grab Crusadia Power. We're going to Gamma Seal here to this zone, and it's important. Your Kaiju placement is important. You need to Kaiju in the zone directly facing the extra monster zone for your step 3, which we're going to get to, and you need your other Kaijus to be in one of these 2 zones here on either side of your extra monster zone. Very, very important. We summon out Leonis, and then we're going to go into the Equimax. Equimax then is your your third and final part of the chain. Equimax then gains attack points equal to the attack of all the monster it points to. That's why the placement of your monsters is vital. 33 from this, 22 from this, 16 from this. Then Maximus gives it the ability to deal double battle damage if it battles a monster, at 9100 attack points, dealing double battle damage. Our opponent tries to use our own field spell against us here using Jizz the Star Destroyer, but our Kaiju, our Gamma Seal, also has infinite negates. We also just have Crusadia power, right? He tries to negate and destroy our Maximus, but we're simply going to make Maximus unaffected using Crusadia power. Completely unaffected, no negate, no pop, no nothing. We go in the battle phase, and literally, remember, 9100 attack, and he deals double battle damage. We just swing into the Kaiju, and bang, 11,000 damage. And it's as easy as that. You literally just summon one Magius, summon something underneath it, search. Go into Regulus, summon underneath it, search. Go into Equimax, kick them in the face, and you win. That's what makes this deck so accessible, and like, you don't need to worry about their problematic monsters, because you just Kaiju over them. And then you just attack the Kaijus. Like, that's the plan. And it's so super straightforward and simple that anyone can pick this deck up and play it. Your games go by so fast. You're not going to win all of them, of course not. But either way, you're either going to win really fast or lose really fast, right? So it goes by really quickly. A lot of people aren't ready for that sort of blitzkrieg type attack where you're just going up into the Equimax and just gunning for them. Although a lot more people are starting to play around it more, so you're probably going to find more trouble trying to play this deck after this video comes out rather than beforehand, of course. And beforehand, it's no picnic either. This isn't like a guaranteed win deck or anything like that, but it definitely does have its easy wins. But anyway, I'm not going to ramble right now. Let's get into game number 2 where we mess around with Kaijus a little bit more. Already getting into the next game, and something you'll notice your opponent's doing an awful lot, right, is that if you choose to go second, so we won this coin toss and we chose to go second, right, and because we chose to go second, our opponent knows for a fact we're playing Crusadia, so they don't summon anything because they know that we're just going to Kaiju it, right, and that's how people are learning to play against the deck. It's not foolproof, but people are now learning to play against it. So in this particular replay, well, our Crusadia combo just isn't going to be enough. So we go Magius, summon Draco underneath it, Draco recycle the Maximus, Magius is going to search our deck for another Crusadia, so there's a little +2 if you will. Magius then grabbing us Arborea. Arborea is pretty good because it can banish itself from graveyard like a Salamangreat Bailings to protect your things from destruction. Regulex then would search our deck for Crusadia power. Our opponent misplays here pretty heavily. They Imperm and then Nib, and I don't know what they were thinking. They Nibiru, of course, Nibiru is one of the big counters to the deck. Everyone's running Nibiru now. And the Imperm doesn't do anything anymore, so they sort of hand loop themselves for no reason. We do tribute their Nibiru token for the Gamma Seal. We do make a mistake here, right? We shouldn't have played our Kaiju here on the off chance he is also playing Crusadia, right? This was a small misplay. Don't be doing this. Summon your Kaijus to your far zones or your middle. That's where you summon it. Our opponent plays Emergency Teleport though, and they're going to Psychic Tracker, and then they summon out Speedroid Ultra Hound, which is basically going to send a Speedroid card from deck to graveyard, which is another Ultra Hound, which they attempt to revive off of Monster Reborn, but we go spell that. We don't want to be dealing with that nonsense. So yeah, our opponent's playing a pretty interesting strategy. We had a bit of a counter to it there in the form of Ghost Spell, but they're going to go into the Key de Jin, which this actually allows them to attack directly, which is their plan. So they deal 1100 points of damage directly, and then they go into the Downward Magician, and then into the all-famous Zeus. So Zeus is one of the biggest monsters in this event, one of the most popular cards being played in the event, so having Kaijus handy to get rid of it is very useful. Being able to just tribute him and be gone. We switch the attack, we summon our Maximus, and our opponent has had enough. They do not want to be playing around with Kaijus. So yeah, that's where Kaijus come into it. Whenever your Crusadia combo isn't enough, don't forget that you do have that built-in disruption. You're able to out pretty much anything in the meta, right? There's no boss monster you can't out, which is huge. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly show off a little Kaiju-centric game. Now, we weren't getting much done with Crusadia, but that's how you get an easy win using your Kaijus. Let's get into game number 3, which is going to be a bit of a bad matchup for us. Already now, one of our weaker matchups, as you can imagine, would be Banish and Trap Stun. So utilizing their Banisher's Radiance, luckily here we do have the Gamma Seal, so we are able to tribute over their monster for our Gamma Seal. We're going to go Pot of Desires here, Pot of Desires, Banish 10 just to get Ash Blossomed. I mean, it happens, what are you going to do about it? I believe we do go into Reclusia here. I could be wrong. Yeah, we go Reclusia into Magius, and then we can utilize our Gamma Seal to trigger the Magius here. Summon the Gamma Seal underneath it, trigger Magius, searches our deck, or it would, except we get Solemn Strike. So this is one of the biggest weaknesses of the deck, right, is back row type strategies, stun based decks, makes it very, very difficult for our deck to work. So we set our Droplet and we simply pass it back to our opponent here. Our opponent's going to go Pot of Desires, nothing we can do about that. They draw 2, they summon another Banisher Radiance, so that is not great. They crash the Kaijus and then swing directly with Banisher. Our Forbidden Droplet is now officially dead. We cannot activate it so long as Banishers face up. We top deck Infinite Impermanence, set it, and I believe we don't stick around here for very much longer. Yeah, no, we just scoop it up. There was 0% chance of us winning that, especially with the two. When you think about it logically, right, against all of the back row as well as the banishment, we would need to draw at least like 2, maybe even 3 cards to have a playable hand. And by then, there's going to be far too much interruption for us to play through. So back row based strategies and stun based strategies, banished locks, things like that, that disrupt the normal flow of the game in a way that isn't monster oriented, is one of the biggest weaknesses of the deck, because you can't Kaiju a trap card. You know what I mean? So that is definitely where the deck sort of falls back, and we're going to be seeing an increase in that as we're going along, which means that maybe some more mid-range decks are going to be more popular rather than this raw OTK strategy. We're going to show one more of a very unique deck that I've only seen once or twice in the event that is also very good against this deck, that I think some of you may be interested in. So let's get into game number 4. Already getting into our 4th and final game here, yet again going second. Pot of Extravagance, banishing 6 to draw 2. Fantastic here. Pot of Duality from our opponent as well, grabbing another card. Look at that top deck. They got the Magic Jammer on deck, they got the Judgment, they got cards at Demise. They're going to go getting Aradine or whatever its name is. So basically we know we're dealing with a counter trap deck, right? And that is big, because counter traps, a lot of them can respond to the actual summoning of your cards, which is huge. That's a big deal, so it is. So that means that throughout this match here, we're going to go Pot of Desires, banish 10 just to get hit with a Judgment. And because of this Pendulum card, he doesn't have to pay any life points to Judgment. It's free. He doesn't have to pay life points, and he doesn't have to discard cards. His counter traps are free because of this Pendulum card. It is absolutely nuts. This card is bonkers. We go to link summon out our Almirage. Almirage's summon gets negated by the Black Horn of Heaven. We do get to search our deck here for an Ash Blossom. We just decide to grab a hand trap to survive the turn so that we can potentially try to combo off on the following turn. But it's not looking good here. He grabs another counter trap, which is going to act as an Omni Negate here. Pot of Extravagance, draw another 2 cards. Luckily, we did have the Ash Blossom on this occasion, so no draw 2 for you, good sir. And his extra deck is running a little bit too thin to be of any use to him. He's going to set 1 and then use cards of Demise, which is crazy. Just draw 3 into a Pot of Desires for draw 2s. He just drew 5 cards. Absolutely bonkers. Of course, he can't attack us or deal any sort of damage here, but it's still incredible. The guide, we're going to call it the guide, right? If it's destroyed by battle or card effect, he also gets to pick our counter trap in his deck basically and add it to his hand, or well, he reveals 3 and we pick 1, but he essentially just gets to grab 1 from deck. We link off into Magius here. Magius gets hit with a Solemn Strike, negating the summon of the card, which is huge. Again, leaves us with no follow-up. We do pass turn here back to them. We pass back. We take the 17 to the face. We know that they can't really push for lethal here, but they've got way too much back row for us to contend with. We draw for turn. We draw Draco, which is fine. Leonis into Magius. We're going to try this one more time. We're going to go Draco this time, triggering off Magius and triggering off Draco. We're actually doing okay here, and we get hit with the Divine Punishment, which normally would destroy the Draco, but we have the Arborea engrave, So we're actually going to be able to protect it here and maybe even continue on with our plays. We got a little bit optimistic when this happened, because now we're going to be able to go into Regulex, which is further than we've ever gotten before. We're going to go Maximus then underneath the Regulex. He's going to go for Divine Punishment again. Unfortunately, this time we don't have an Arborea to protect ourselves, so our Regulus gets cooked. And we don't have another Link monster for us to extend. So ultimately we simply have to pass turn, and we realize that there's absolutely no way we can outpace this. We only run 2 Magius, so we didn't have any more Magius to get searching. We simply couldn't outpace that deck at that stage. He had gotten rid of all of our Link 1s, and life was simply going to be hell from then on. So yeah, back row based strategies, especially counter traps, because they can react to the summon of your cards, like Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning. Those cards are incredible against Crusadia. So if you're really in the market for an anti-Crusadia deck, Counter Trap Fairies is not a bad option. It's, you know, it's quirky, it's fun, it's outside of the meta, it helps deal with quite a few different decks, it's very versatile. Maybe not the most consistent deck in the world, but it's pretty cool, it's pretty fun, you know. I'm all about trying out new decks, trying out new strategies, so absolutely. That's where we're going to leave it for the gameplay. There's the 4 replays, so you've got a good balance of sort of what you expect from the deck. Now we're going to be getting into the deck profile. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile then. So we're going to be talking about a few options, but first things first, let's strip out the nonsense. We've got that triple Maximus C, we've got the double Ash Blossom, double Ghost Bell, we've got the double Potted Desires, not core, don't need it, the triple Lightning Storm, and we've got the double Infinite Impermanence. Everything else here is kind of sort of core. You don't necessarily need this exact lineup of Kaijus. Just think of this as an example. I think the 3 Gamma-Seal, maybe 2 if you don't have the SR credits. I think Gamma-Seal is definitely the best of them, but yeah. We're just going to go through card for card, talk about them all as we go along. Most of them are going to be relatively similar, so it's probably not going to take us very long. We're going to start off with the best normal summon in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, Sangan. So Sangan, basically, whenever it's sent from field to grave, it adds a monster from deck to hand who's 1500 attack or less, but you can't activate their effects for the duration of the turn they are searched. Now, that is interesting, right? Because there's a couple of intricacies there. These guys summoning themselves, so all of the Crusadia monsters can special summon themselves to a zone that a Link monster points to. That's an inherent summon, so they don't need to activate to do that. So whatever, if you decide to search a Crusadia card off of Sangan, that means you can still special summon that card from hand using its own effect, because it's an inherent summon. So the Sangan won't get in the way of that, and that's primarily what you're going to be using it for. You don't have to use this card. If you don't like it, you can cut this guy and just put in more Crusadias. It may even be better. To be honest, I don't even know. I like the Sangan for the versatility of being able to grab me like a hand trap on the off chance I need to. So I like it for the versatility, but you can definitely cut it if you just don't like it. How this guy works is basically you would normal summon him and then link off an Almirage, and then that would obviously trigger his search, and then you can special summon a Crusadia to the zone that Almirage points to, and then you just go off, go nuts. So yeah, that's why Sangan's here. Crusadia Reclusia, all of the Crusadia monsters, I'm not going to repeat this for every single one of them, all of them can special summon themselves to a zone that the Link monster points to. All the Crusadia monsters can do that, right? Then they all have a unique secondary effect. So Reclusia, when it's normal or special summoned to a zone that the Link monster points to, you target a Crusadia card you control and a card your opponent controls, pop both. So basically just pop one you control, pop one they control. It doesn't really come up very often. Arborea can banish itself from the graveyard to protect your Crusadia monsters from destruction, which is good. Leonis can target a Crusadia monster on your field, and for the duration of that turn, that Crusadia monster now inflicts piercing damage. Very good at pushing for lethal. Leonis is definitely one of your key cards. Draco, whenever summoned to a zone a Link monster points to, will grab a Crusadia monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. So that's exceptionally useful when it comes down to continuing your combo, because remember, you're probably going to normal summon a Crusadia, link it off, and then into your Magius. That Crusadia monster can still be special summoned, so Draco being able to recycle back the one you normal summoned to then later be special summoned is really, really good. So Draco definitely a 3 of. I think Draco is one of the better ones. And then Maximus is the one that turns your Equimax into a Sigma. Target a Link monster, Crusadia monster you control, and for the duration of that turn, any battle damage it inflicts while attacking a monster is doubled. So this guy is the big lethal generator, especially in combination with Leonis. If you can get both of these guys underneath an Equimax, GG's, game over. And then we've got our Kaijus. So again, for anyone who doesn't know how Kaijus work, Kaijus, you can special summon them to your opponent's side of the field by tributing one of their monsters. And if your opponent controls a Kaiju, you can special summon a Kaiju to your field. Both players can only control one Kaiju. So we're playing a bunch of different ones. Their effects don't really matter too much unless you're comboing it with the Waterfront, right? So with the Waterfront, Radiant can summon a Radiant token, which is just basically a copy of himself. Gameciel can negate cards infinitely, which is insane. Negate and banish, which is crazy. The Gameciel, that's why we're playing 3 of it. Gameciel plus Waterfront is nutty. Absolutely. Godarla will halve the attack and defense of all of our monsters. Thunder King can attack 3 times, like 3 separate monsters, and for the rest of the turn, your opponent can't activate cards or effects. This guy is absolutely crazy. If you can proc that effect, if you can actually get that to work, you are laughing. That's why it might even be worth running more Radiant, because you don't really care about giving your opponent like a Radiant token. Like, you don't care about that, so you might even want to like maybe cut these 2 and play more Radiant just to give this one to your opponent. But that's up to you. Again, I'm just putting these guys, I'm putting them all in as examples of what you can do. I don't know why my sleeve was running up there. You can put them all in just as examples of what you can play, but you probably just want to play more Radiant. And lastly is this guy. Whenever a card or effect that activates that targets one card in the field, you can negate the activation and destroy any card in the field. Not the card that activated, you can destroy any card. So you don't necessarily have to destroy the card that activated, which is good. It gives this guy a little bit more utility as well. Now you need to remember, so Waterfront is how you're going to activate all of these effects, right? While this card is face up, when a card is sent from field to grave, a Kaiju counter is added to this field spell. And that's a maximum of 5. So all of these guys, except for Gameciel and Radiant, need to detach 3 Kaiju counters from the field. These two guys need to detach 2 Kaiju counters from the field. And that's from anywhere on the field, meaning if you give your opponent a Kaiju, they can use your Kaiju counters. You need to remember that's going to be the main reason as to why you probably just want to run more Radiant, rather than giving your opponent potentially useful Kaijus. But again, just something worth bearing in mind. You can sort of do whatever you want from there. I just think that's probably going to be the best way of playing it. But yeah, the Waterfront basically just gives your Kaijus their extra superpowers. And lastly, Crusadia Power, searchable off of Regulex as part of your main combo. It basically just makes one of your Crusadia monsters unaffected by any other card effects that turn, which is pretty nuts. It's really good at preventing them from interrupting your combo. But usually by the time you've searched it, if they're going to interrupt it, they already will have. So it's not always the most useful card in the world, but it is always nice to have. So yeah, like I said, main deck is super simple. Special summon a bunch of cards, Kaiju a bunch of their monsters, and then we're going to get into the extra deck, which has the third element of the deck, which is beat their ass, in the form of Equimax. But we're going to talk about the chain and how we get there. So we're going to focus first on the main Crusadia monsters. There's 4 main ones: Magius, Regulex, Equimax, and Avramax. So Magius first. Magius is your Link 1. So they all have the same sort of effect where if a monster is special summoned to a zone that they point to, they get effects. So Magius, whenever a monster is special summoned to a zone he points to, searches your deck for a Crusadia monster. Very simple, very good extender. Regulex, whenever a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, it will search your deck for a Crusadia spell or trap card. So that's where you search for your Crusadia power. There are a couple of other decent options. I think the field spell is a decent option. If we weren't playing Waterfront, I would probably play the field spell at 1, because it gives your Equimax the ability to attack all of your opponent's monsters. I think Waterfront is just better, but if you're not playing this, then the field spell might be something worth considering. So Regulex, again, just searches your deck for a Crusadia spell or trap card. Then you've got Equimax, which is your main OTK generator, gains the attack of everything it points to. Everything it points to can't attack, and you can basically use a quick effect to tribute a Crusadia or World Legacy monster it points to negate the effects of a face-up card. So it is essentially like a face-up omni-negate as well, on occasion, which is useful. Like, don't get me wrong, that does come up, especially if you're forced to go first. Setting up like an Equimax negate is not a terrible play. But his main intention is comboing with your Maximus to inflict lethal damage to your opponent right off the bat. That is your main objective with this guy. And lastly, your going first staple or your recovery card, the Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax. You ironically will not use this card very often, but he is definitely a nice one to have. Basically just untargetable beat stick. He can't really be destroyed by battle. Realistically, he can't be. If you summon him off of IP, he can't be destroyed by card effects. If he does manage to go to the graveyard, you will shuffle back one of your opponent's cards without targeting. Pretty busted. This guy's definitely extremely useful. Really nice card to have. A personal favorite of mine, always have been. I keep on talking about it. But yeah, Avramax is pretty great. So what about the rest of our Link monsters then? Well, most of them are just general purpose. Almirage is purely here to put Sangan in the graveyard. That is it. You've got your Nightmare, Cerberus, and Phoenix for popping monsters, popping back row. Pretty simple stuff, nothing really special there. We've got Crusadia Spaefa, right? Spaefa is sort of like your alternative to Regulex, it's just not as good. If a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, you can target a monster in either player's main monster zone and move it, which is like really weak. This card might not even be worth playing, to be honest. But I don't have anything that I would like immediately want to replace it with. Maybe, you know what, I keep on referring back to this card. The Topologic Bomber Dragon is an option you could play there instead, right? It's not very often you go into Link 4s, but you can totally go into Link 4s. So that may be an option. If you don't want to play Spaefa, don't play Spaefa. You don't have to. You can maybe play like the Bomber Dragon instead. It's up to you. Go nuts. But we're going to keep it straightforward for the sake of the deck profile. So Spaefa, we have it at 1. You don't have to play it. It's pretty garbage. IP Masquerena, obvious reasons. IP Masquerena is broken. It's a UR, yes, and I know I called this deck affordable. The only cards you actually need in your deck are these, right? These are the only ones you need. Everything else is a treat. Treat yourself. Why not? So, IP Masquerena, if you haven't crafted this card, craft it. It's amazing. It's amazing in virtually every deck. It's so versatile. It's incredible. Just link summon during your opponent's turn, and whatever monster you link summon can't be destroyed by card effects. Incredible. Definitely one of the best Link monsters that have ever been printed. Nightmare Unicorn pairs wonderfully with Masquerena. On summon, discard a card to target a card in the field and shuffle it back into the deck. Masquerena summoning Unicorn on your opponent's turn has forever been and will likely forever be one of the premier combos for any deck that has a few monsters left over. So absolutely, these two cards, you will use this little combo in virtually any deck that doesn't use a full 15 card extra deck. And lastly then, Apollousa, just sort of a filler Link 4. It doesn't really matter what this is, just any Link 4. Avramax, the access code Talker isn't allowed in this event, otherwise I will play that. But Apollousa is a close second. Apollousa is fine. And lastly, the Chaos Goddess, or Goddess of the Closed World, is basically just here as an extra monster. You'll almost never summon this card. It's very difficult to summon in this deck, because yes, you can special summon a whole bunch of times, but it's only really to zones that like Link monsters point to. So being able to have 4 separate monsters on the field is usually not that easy. So you'll very, very rarely use this card. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Replace it with something else. I like the Bomber Dragon. If you don't have it, replace it with the Bomber Dragon. But go nuts. That's the full deck profile. Again, I'm not going to sit and linger on it longer than what is necessary. Like I said, this deck is exceptionally simple. I'm going to bring the full deck list back up. This deck is exceptionally simple. It is super easy. It is super cheap. So you can basically just fill in the blanks with whatever you want. And yeah, if you like seeing these sorts of breakdowns of decks, we have this same style of video for basically any deck we've ever posted on the channel, unless it's like a repost of a deck we've already covered. But if you like seeing these sorts of in-depth breakdowns, absolutely subscribe and like the video, because this is what we do on a regular basis. So absolutely stick around, watch our videos, go back and watch our old ones, stick around for our new ones, and yeah, we'll all just have a good time. And I really don't have anything else to say on it, so I guess I'll be seeing you on the next one. Bye bye.